Pardon? No, I can do that. Pardon?
It is my great privilege to welcome you all here and to share with you in this special time, a time of remembering, grieving, honouring and farewelling June Powell. Thank you all for your attendance here to honour June. This service will conclude with the burial at Pukeremu Cemetery, and then everyone is invited to share refreshments with the family in the church hall here, and to continue to remember June. And if you don't want to go to the cemetery, you're welcome to go straight into the hall. We also welcome those who are joining us by live streaming, so that although far away, they can still be part of this celebration of June's life. June was an important part of all your lives. We are here because of June's death, but we come now to celebrate her life, to honour her, to grieve her loss, to farewell her, and to share some special memories of her. This is a celebration of a long and well-lived life. Funerals are for the living, to honour, celebrate and farewell someone who has been significant in your life. We are here to honour and celebrate June. June is now at peace from difficulties, pain and suffering she experienced in life. But for those of you who were close to her, there may be a deep and overwhelming sense of loss. Let us bring that loss to God. Let us pray. Loving God, we thank you for being with us as we gather to mourn, farewell, and celebrate the life of June Powell. We thank you that the challenges, pain and suffering June experienced in life are now over, and that she is safe in your care. At this time when this loss is new and feelings are raw, we pray that all who grieve and all who are struggling with a sense of loss may be very aware of your peace and comfort offered to them. May each one here have all the love and strength they need to cope, and be very conscious of your love and support. Amen. None of us knows the whole truth about what lies beyond death, because we have not yet experienced that. Each of us may have our own ideas, understandings, and beliefs in relation to that mystery. What we do know at this moment is that the life of this woman who was such an important part of your lives, lives on in you in a multitude of ways. Some of you may find that life within your own lives and memories. Others may experience a sense of life in a different dimension going on into the future. For some of you, it may be comforting to think of June's spirit being with God. But June's energy, strength and spirit are also with you and around you. She lives on in you and in your memories. What you learnt from June, the example she gave you, and what you shared with her live on in you and become part of you. June had a strong faith and believed in God. We are here in this place because this was her church, where she felt at home. June was very involved in the life of this church community. She belonged to the Women's Fellowship. She was secretary of the birthday mission gift system for many years, and June made wonderful flower arrangements for the church too. June knew that God was always with her. She believed in the words of Psalm 23. Isabella Tracy is going to read that for us now. Thank you, Isabella.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of the righteousness for his name's sake.
Thank you, Isabella. June's favourite hymn was Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah. We're going to sing that together now in her honour. You'll find the words on the inside of the service sheet.
Thank you.
Please be seated. So who was Norma June Powell? You each know June in different ways or have connected with different aspects of her life. Her children, Lynn, Stuart and Chris, are going to share their mother's life story with us. Thank you.
Hello everyone, lovely to see so many people here under the circumstances. Right, there we go. Norma June Clark. June to her friends and was born in Thames on the 27th of February 1924. Third eldest of four sisters, May, Ethel, we called her Et, June and Dell. And Dell's here today. She's the baby. And June was raised on a dairy farm at Parish, a small settlement on the Paeroa Thames Highway. I think most of you all know where that is. And after leaving Thames High School, June worked in the post office and at credit mins in Thames, where she boarded with the Cox family. And she would bike home to her family home in Puri for the weekend, and on longer trips, like going shopping in Te Araha, June and her friends would take their bikes on the train to Te Araha and bike home. And I remember the Puri Hill was the killer. So June met Doug Powell, a recently returned World War II soldier from Kaumata, a little spot on the same Thames Paeroa highway but closer to Paeroa, at a Thames ball party organised by her friend Hazel Percy. The occasion was extra special because it was the same night that their close friends Nolan and Arthur Reed, and Charmaine is here today, also met, and both couples were married soon after. June for a respectable period when it said he was known to come a-courting with the odd drop of liquor, which he'd hide in the gumboots on the porch of the Clark family home, because the parents were going off to the movies, so they were left at home. And the Clarks were good Methodists, and Methodist liquor was a no-no. Mentioned in dispatches, Doug had been a junior officer in the 2-4 Battalion, which saw action in Monte Cassino and at Sangro River, and later at Trieste, where war with Yugoslavia was narrowly avoided. Not long after being demobbed and returning to Paeroa, where he took over the family farm, not long after that, he and June were married. Farming in those days was less high-tech than it is now, and there was more time for leisure pursuits, so Doug was a keen horseman, and the hunt was a popular event in those days. Married on the 9th of July 1949, before moving into Doug and June lived in the little cottage on the family farm before moving into the big house when he took over the milking around about the same time that Arthur and Nolan Reed took on their farm. Lynn came along in 1950. Oh, that means it is. Followed by Stuart in 1953, the year the Queen visited the country, not especially to see the Powells, but like most New Zealanders, then they saw her in Rotorua. And I can remember Mum told me that the Queen actually waved to me and my cousin. And 5 years later, this little fella came along, Chris, playing her full part in the running of the farm and in rural life generally. June was a member of the Women's Division of Federated Farmers, and when the farm switched to dry stock and sheep, Mum prepared huge meals of mutton and what have you, and I could clearly remember the shearers with the towels around their neck coming to our place for breakfast, and the smell was so June played golf for 30 years, and floral art played a big part in her latter years, and she was, as Mary said, she was a church flower lady on the roster. The family had always had a holiday cottage on the shores of Lake Rotorua, first at Hamarana and later at Hannah's Bay, where many happy summers were spent with the family and Paeroa friends. Marie McWaters will remember that, and later growing a crop of grandchildren. Water skiing, boating, fishing and swimming filled their days, and frogging too was a big pastime because there were drains that we'd go frogging until one summer when they were just no longer there. And soon after, Lynn married. A new generation of June's offspring would have become part of the Powell family tradition. And so the years passed with the arrival of even more grandchildren, adding even more to the huge array of knitwear June produced, which today amounts to a sizable family heirloom of exquisite garments handmade by our wonderful mum. So with the running of the farm now firmly under control, Doug and June were able to treat themselves, and so trips to Australia and a couple of trips to Europe produced more tales for the Powell story. Mum loved the glamour and the excitement of travel and the shops. The years passed and all was good, and then suddenly at just 68 years of age, Doug was gone and June was on her own. Perhaps with an inkling that he might not be around for long, Doug had earlier subdivided the farm, and so when she was ready, June moved into town, to the home she has lived in alone for the past 32 years, and from which she left in October last year to join Malcolm and I. We had hoped this would be another chapter in June's life, and that she would be with us at least until the Queen's telegram arrived. But it wasn't to be, and then too soon after moving in with us, she said she wanted to go and be with Doug again. And so it is that we are here today to remember Mum and June, to smile at the wonderful moments we shared with her, and so to content in her conviction that she will be with Doug. It's a sure bet that someone up there in the heavenly, someone up there in the heavenly shopping area. Doug is sitting in his car, drumming his fingers as June is in a fashion shop and tries on yet another frock. Damn frocks, he'd say. And the next time we look up into the sky and see some particularly lovely rolling clouds, we'll imagine it's wool from Nan's knitting basket as she produces another cardigan for another one, someone special. Rest in peace, dearest Mum.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for sharing your mother's story with us. Now some of the grandchildren have some special memories to share. Lisa Frankel, Catherine Tracy and Megan Evans.
I have a little note here from cousin Margaret. She says, my memories are about shoes which we know she adored, always looking immaculate with clothes, makeup, hair and her jewellery. She was always interested in the detail which she remembered, whether it was about the family, the house and in particular the garden. She would always ask about the garden when she sent her Christmas card. She was a wonderful sister-in-law to Mum, a great friend for her. So many memories of her, her strong faith, her love for all her family, her face lighting up when she laughed. So many precious memories of a very special auntie. Rest in peace, Auntie June. And I've written a little something. Norma June Powell, Mrs. Powell, June, also known as our darling Nan, born on Wednesday the 27th of February 1924, then went on to the next life to be with Grandad again on Thursday the 3rd of March 2022. 98 years young. People say that our Nan had a good innings, living to the ripe old age of 98. But I feel we, as her grandies, feel like it was us that had the good innings with Nan. It's almost unheard of to have your Nan, in our case, or a grandparent for that matter, in your life as a 40-plus-year-old. We're also fortunate that we experienced that. She saw us all, her grandchildren, Megan, Catherine, Emily, Rowena, myself, Melissa and Daniel, grow up, turn into responsible adults, fall in love, fall out of love, back in love, get married and have our own families. She also watched our babies grow into the lovely children and teenagers and young adults that they are today, all the while knitting beautiful booties, beanies, jumpers and treasured cardigans for our babes. Our Nan has 12 great-grandchildren, with a 13th on the way. Claudia, Florencia and Romilly, Luca and Isabella, India and Welby, Finley and Iggy, Miller, who is expecting a little brother or sister very soon, Chloe and Josh. Our Nan showed us what independence and strength looked like after Grandad died, and she did that continually for 30-odd years. Nan had spent a lifetime without the love of her life, our Grandad, and I can't fathom losing my Benny at all. Yet our Nan walked this earth without her dad by her side for just over 30 years. I've nearly spent 20 years of my life with my Benny. That's 2/3 of the time that Nan has been without the love of her life. If that isn't the definition of strength and independence, I don't know what is. She was fierce, a trait that I can relate to. Determined, robust and soft all at once, thoughtful, caring, nurturing, loving and gentle. She had a sharp wit and a lovely giggle. She had knobby fingers that I'd love to squeeze one last time, or have them touch and grab my elbows again. Her pantry was always stocked or overstocked, depending on how you looked at it. And she always was generous with her time and had wonderful stories attached to things we would pull out and ask questions about. She would always wear an apron around the house with pockets, and you would find a few pegs stashed in those pockets along with a hanky or two. She would also have a clean folded hanky tucked into her bra and would always use one of those hankies to wave us off when our visits had come to an end. As she walked to the end of the driveway or waving her hanky at us, she'd be scanning her beautiful garden, looking for weeds to pull out. And if you were watching her wave at you, you'd see her bend over and pull out those pesky weeds. Life is about living, and that's what Nan showed us in her daily rituals and how she lived her life. We got the pleasure of growing up and older with our Nan. We're all a little older, greyer and wrinklier than we'd all like to admit, but she showed us how to age gracefully. I still remember the day Nan wore pants for the first time in the early 90s. It was a big deal. We were talking about a lady who did everything in dresses or skirts. She had her dedicated gardening clothes, which consisted of dark flowy skirts and an old blouse that she would wear. I always remember how elegant she looked while gardening. And let's not forget that ever-present apron with pockets that would be worn to complete her outfit. Me, on the other hand, and my gardening clothes, isn't the picture of beauty that Nan was. I'm in overalls with holes and paint-splattered tees. Maybe I need to relook at that? So for Nan to get into a pair of slacks was a very big deal, and of course, she looked fabulous. So modern. There are so many things in our lives on the daily that is a Nanism. Our love of cheese. Give me all the cheeses. Our love of plants, both indoor and outdoor, and our love for nurseries. Nan had a particular way of tying off reusable bags. We all do this. And I know that I can't go to bed without fluffing the cushions on the couch or doing a quick tidy up around the house. Or when I leave the house, it needs to be tidy. I can't leave dishes in the sink overnight. And I'm a serial clothing washer, and I must hang up the clothes before going out to get them on the line. Even though my Benny laughs at me and thinks I'm slightly cuckoo for needing the house tidy before heading out for the day or going to bed, I remind him and the boys, my boys, how nice it is to come home to a tidy house or to wake up and the house is tidy. And I know they agree with me. I'm so thankful for these traits that Nan has passed on. We have a family tradition of eating pancakes at home on a Sunday, and my boys Finley and Iggy will raid my linen cupboard and find my favourite embroidered linen napkins to dress the table up. They'd also raid the garden and pick flowers to place on the table too. It's such a powerful, vivid memory that I have eating at Nan's place when I lived with her. Beautiful linen napkins would all have different colours so that we could reuse the same one the following meal, or the next one, or the one after. And they'd be rolled up and we'd each have our own napkin ring to go with our napkin. We'd also have a tablecloth placed on the table to protect the table, with placemats under our plates that she would always warm in the oven before serving our meals. Such little rituals and small details, but they made me feel safe and loved. I remember holidaying in Rotorua and Nan needing a bathroom while we were shopping in town. So she would casually walk us into Cobb & Co. and we'd pretend to admire the artwork and the wallpaper, the curtains, and we would eventually make our way to the bathroom. She'd use the facilities, and when she washed her hands, she'd wipe and clean down the sink so it was left tidy for the next person. I'm also finding myself doing that more and more as I get older. Another Nanism. She was always thinking of others with her actions, even though she would sneak into Cobb & Co. to use their loo. My cousin Emily gave Nan such a wonderful gift the last 4 weeks of Nan's life. The precious gift of time. Something that we all don't seem to have enough of, and it seems to slip away so quickly these days, particularly when you have kids. Yet Em was there every day for our darling Nan while she was in hospital, giving her time. Even though she was busy with her own family life too, and was able to be present for Nan when we couldn't, when I couldn't. And I would have given anything to have been there in person if it wasn't for the border closures between Australia and New Zealand. I'm forever grateful that Em dedicated those last 4 weeks for our darling Nan. Thank you, Em. And thank you for those that were able to support Ben and Em while she was in the hospital. Time is so precious. That is something that we all need to reflect on and take away from today's farewell. Life is far too short, even if we measure our lives with our Nan's years. I'm so grateful to call Norma June Powell my Nan. Thank you.
Our dearest darling Nanny, Nana Muscuri, great Nanny, you were a true constant in our lives. You were always there, and now you're not. I feel so fortunate to have had you in my life for 44 years. You were my nanny, who I missed the minute we drove away up the driveway at Komata. I'd cry all the way home. You were the proud Nan at my wedding, and you lovingly knitted for my babies. You remembered every birthday, and you'd send me home with cuttings from your beloved garden. You even sat in the beaming hot sun recently and watched your great-grandson Luca play touch rugby. See? You were always there, and now you're not. You were so strong and independent. When Granddad passed away all those years ago, you showed such strength and grace, learning to live on your own after a lifetime with Granddad by your side. Your possum trapping skills would put most men to shame, especially when you'd load the trap into your boot and take those possums for a swim up the Maritota. You drove yourself to Auckland up until you were about 90. You lived alone in your own home, preparing meals for yourself until you were 97. You were a legend. So when you told me that final Saturday that you were ready to go, I knew you'd used up all your strength and you were ready to go and be with Granddad. You were always there and now you're not. And because you were always there, my memory bank is rich with so many wonderful memories. They're like vivid photographs in my mind. And like you said to me that final Saturday, we'll always have our memories. You were always there, and now that you're not, I hope you're with Granddad, somewhere fabulous, smiling down upon us. Rest in glorious peace, my man. My earliest fond memories of you, Nan, are from the farm, with Granddad bringing you the paper, a cup of tea and bickies each morning, and I always thought it a wonderful way to start your day. We would climb in next to you, snuggle in close, and your warm words from articles you'd read aloud would wash over me as biscuit crumbs fell on my head. I would try to stifle my giggles as Granddad dressed for the day, not knowing that we'd seen him in his undies. School holidays spent with you in Komata, riding Gypsy the horse, and in Rotorua catching tadpoles down at the creek, with Makoia Island boat trips and leisurely summer picnics, followed by Lake Rotoiti hot pool soaks, are memories that always bring me joy. When you moved into town and I would visit a grown-up, we never went hungry, as you'd always be concerned about the next meal we would have. I was happy to oblige as you found something else for us to eat before hitting the road, because saying goodbye was so hard, knowing you would be on your own once more. I've always proudly told people what a brave and resilient lady you are, still living in your own home, driving around Paeroa, even making trips to the dump. Your memory recall is unmatched by any, as you've conjured up such vivid pictures of your overseas holidays, what you wore on a certain trip, or how someone wore their hair in a certain way on a certain day so many moons ago. I have worn my dress today as a nod to your hairdo that you've sported in more recent years. Hairdressers must be trained to encourage such a shade when their clients reach a particular vintage. Nevertheless, it has been most lovely on you. Now that you've gone, reunited with Granddad after such a very long stretch apart, I'm drawn to the Irish blessing from the fridge magnet I gave you years ago that has sat amongst the many photos of us all on your fridge. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.
Thank you very much, Lisa, Catherine and Megan. There is opportunity now for anyone else who would like to say a few words, share a memory or a tribute to do so. Is there anyone who'd like to say something?
got it here somewhere. In this surroundings, I think I'll remind it of, perhaps it's appropriate to tell you a little joke. A dad was reading to his son from the Bible, telling him the story about Sodom and Gomorrah, and particularly he was talking about Lot's wife. And she was told to take yourself and flee the city. And she did. But she looked back and was turned to a pillar of salt. And the little boy hearing the story wondered, and he said to his dad, "What happened to the flea?" These three people here today whose loss is it's not considered, and well, you mightn't consider, but yeah, I think it's important. It's Donna, and it's Cheryl, and it's me. We have lost a mother-in-law, and what a mother-in-law she was. A great lady who was always there, as the girls have said, so much more eloquent than me, to support our kids and our endeavours as we, each of us in our respective families, attempted to make our way. And there's also another thing I'd like to say that I owe to Nan. She helped me get lucky. Now, the men in the audience will know the phrase, what to get lucky means. As you get older, of course, that particular phrase loses a lot of its relevance. And we start to perhaps get lucky in other ways. As we age, our bodies change, and we move into another facet of our lives, perhaps. And that the things that we used to be able to do, we either don't do or can't do or aren't allowed to do. And so life moves on, and we move into perhaps areas of more simple pleasures or basic pleasures perhaps. And in that regard, I owe a lot to Nan. About 3 years ago, I got to notice that one of the basic pleasures that we all enjoy each day, all of us, men and women, going for a whittle was getting difficult. And as some of you here will know, some of the men will know, that's a sign of perhaps things are getting a bit tough. And so it was with me. I went along to the doctor, and my PSA was going like that, and lo and behold, it was determined that I had cancer of the prostate. And so in the fullness of time, the arrangements were made, and I was put into the system, and once my number came up, I would take myself along to the Auckland Hospital radiation department and get radiation therapy. It's quite an extraordinary experience to go along to that place, full of men about my age, all going along to expose themselves in front of beautiful young women who don't give a toss. But that were you to do that in public, the cops would be called. And there we were, put through this system to eradicate or cut back or forestall or whatever the sickness. And I came out the other end and started to resume my life as people who get prostate do. But still the whittling problem persisted. And for those that have experienced it, it's not pleasant. long gone were the days when as young fellas touring the country, we might stop on the side of the country road, and there's a couple of my mates in the hall at the moment who might recall, we'd stand on a fence post and see who could peer furthest out into the field. Silly things like that were no longer possible, of course, as you get older. In fact, it was rather difficult and quite painful. But I found the best way to go to the loo was to sit down. What a relief that was. Something that girls have been doing forever. They've never and kept from us. And I thought, wow, that's cool. I can go and have a whittle now, and sitting down makes it far, far more easier. The other problem with getting older, of course, is that you happen to get up in the night time to do these things. And that can be a bit of a lonely experience, 2 and 3, sometimes 4 and 5 times a night. And you make your way to the loo and do your thing, sitting down. And on the very rare occasions that I did that, or had to do that, and still do that, on the very rare occasions I would take my seat and, ooh, the seat was warm. Somebody had been there before me. And that's really nice. And I say, I felt lucky that my time to go to the loo coincided with somebody else having just been there. And so I say, when I say Nan helped me get lucky, when she came to live with us, she doubled my chances of getting lucky. It's a little frivolous, ladies and gentlemen, but it is the nature of things that life is life, and life goes on, and I'll take 98 any day.
Thank you, Malcolm. And thank you for all the special memories that have been shared about June. You all have special memories of what June meant to you, whether you've spoken about them now or not. You are here because she has touched your life very significantly. Continue to reflect on who June was and what she means to you as we watch a slideshow of images of her life and listen to some music that was special to her. It's a wonderful world.
I see trees of green. I see trees of green. Red roses shade. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white. The bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying how they do. They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They're like much more than I ever knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to
June leaves a unique legacy. You are all part of that. You will all have different memories, yet we can all honour June's memory. As you continue to reflect on what June means to you, foster the happy memories of the great moments you shared with her. Be grateful for June's personality, for her gifts and skills, for the interests she had in life, and especially for what she meant to you, her family and her friends. June was much loved and respected. She was a great lady, a grand lady. She did not live in a mansion, but she was grand. June was a great soul who lived a great life. Everybody loved her. Saying farewell to June does not mean the celebration of her life is over. That celebration continues in the life of each one who knew her. May you find comfort in your many memories. May your memories of June inspire your own life. May you find strength and support in your love for one another. And may you find peace in your hearts and courage to face the future. You will find the words of a poem that means a great deal to the family printed on the service sheet. I have the privilege of sharing those words with you now. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sun on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Some of you may find comfort in knowing that the love and strength of God surround you. Nothing can separate us from the love of God, not even death. Let us pray. Loving God, we thank you for the life of June Powell. We are grateful for what June means to her family and friends. We thank you for June's gifts and skills, for her unique personality, and for all she meant to each one here. We commend June to you. God of compassion, we ask that you be especially close now to all who grieve the loss of June, particularly her children and wider family. Surround them all with your love, peace and strength. Amen. And we'll say together the words of the Lord's Prayer, which you'll find printed on the service sheet. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. The earthly life of Norma June Powell has come to a close. Her body has served the purpose for which it was wonderfully brought into being. In love and with dignity, we will commit her body for burial. June's body will return to the elements from which it came, but June in her essential self lives on in you and in your memories. Go into the world in peace. Be strong and courageous. Keep the good memories of June alive in your hearts. Shed tears, and allow yourselves to grieve well, but live in hope and love. May the strength, energy and spirit of June be with you all forever. May the love of God hold you with compassion and give you strength. God bless you. Amen.